So there's this viral political commentary out there making a huge claim that the Democratic Party is basically heading for a complete and total collapse. Today, we're going to break down exactly how it builds that case piece by piece. Let's get into it.
And, the source video doesn't pull any punches. It gets right to it with this pretty provocative idea. The whole argument is that the problems Democrats are facing, it's not bad luck, it's not bad messaging, it's the policies themselves. And really, this simple, kind of blunt claim is the foundation for everything else we're going to look at.
So what's the core argument? Well, the source claims there's a perfect storm of economic data and voter polls that is created, and this is their term, nightmare fuel for the Democrats. It's all meant to signal that their policies are just fundamentally not connecting with everyday Americans.
Now, the whole case is built on two main pillars. First, a really sharp economic contrast between different administrations. And second, polling data that supposedly shows a massive collapse of the Democrats' traditional voter base. So let's break them down, one by one.
All right, first up, let's talk about that first pillar, the economy. The source really builds its story by putting positive economic signs from one period right up against what it calls government waste in another.
Okay, so check this out. This is where the source creates what it calls an insane contrast. On the left, you've got these positive metrics, right? Low inflation, high GDP growth from a previous time. But on the right, to represent what's happening now, it focuses entirely on a critical report about just one agency, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD.
The commentary really latches onto this one number, $5.2 billion. According to the source, that's how much in fraudulent or just plain improper payments were found at HUD in a single year. And this is presented as the concrete proof of a system that's failing.
And to really drive the point home, the source dives into the specific details from that HUD report. It claims $77 million went to tenants who were already deceased. Another $150 million was tied to Social Security numbers that just didn't exist, and $288 million was spent on rents that were way too high. This is the evidence it uses to make its case for widespread government waste.
Okay, so that's the economic side. Now let's pivot to the second pillar of the argument, the claim that the Democratic Party's whole coalition of voters is just falling apart. This is where we shift from economic data to polling numbers.
Right, so after laying out this whole economic case, the source kind of turns to the voters themselves. It asks the big question, how are these economic realities actually showing up in the polls?
And the very first group they put under the microscope? Hispanic voters. The video argues that for a whole year, the story was that this group was moving away from Donald Trump. But then, it says, new polling came out that tells a completely different story.
And this is the key piece of data they use. Citing an Insider Advantage poll, it shows Trump's approval rating with Hispanic voters jumping from 27% all the way to 40% in just 1 month. The source presents this as a massive, sudden turnaround. Now, the source really hammers this home. We're talking about a 24-point swing in net approval in just 1 month. The argument here is that this one data point completely wipes out a year's worth of political stories, bringing support right back to a previous high point.
All right, moving on from there, the commentary zooms in on what it calls one of the most crucial demographics, the youth vote. It sets up this group, ages 18 to 29, as a traditional core bloc for Democrats, a group they could always count on. But then the source claims that's just not true anymore, and that this group has become a swing vote.
And here's the data they use to back that up. The same poll shows that among young voters, approval and disapproval for Trump is a dead heat, 44% to 44%. Now, to make this seem like a really huge shift, the source points out that just 1 month earlier, disapproval was 21 points higher.
Okay, so we've got the economic argument, and we've got the demographic argument. Now let's look at how the source ties it all together to land its final and very definitive conclusion.
And this, right here, is the absolute bombshell claim of the whole video. The argument is that an even split in the youth vote isn't just a problem for Democrats, it's an electoral death sentence. It says point blank that winning national elections with these numbers is statistically impossible.
And this is so crucial. The source isn't just looking at the youth vote in a vacuum. It argues that Democrats have already lost the mail vote and the independent vote. So, with the youth vote now being a toss-up, it claims their whole electoral coalition has basically crumbled.
And that all leads us to the source's final, incredibly dramatic takeaway. By putting the economic data together with these key demographic shifts, it concludes that the Democratic Party is staring down a complete and total annihilation of its chances to win elections.
Ultimately, breaking down this commentary leaves us with a really critical question.
We've seen exactly how specific data points, inflation numbers, HUD audits, certain polls are picked out and then woven together into a story. It really makes you think, right? How can these curated pieces of data, when presented in just the right way, work to build such a powerful and convincing political narrative?